clues to the final design of the new boosted cryo testing stand at Massey's, boosted quick disconnect locations for the launch mount confirmed at Sanchez, multiple ships ready to roll out at the build site, and huge advances in Pad 2's water deluge system at the launch site. Hey everyone, and welcome to RGV Aerial Photography's Starbase Flyover update number 81. Once again, the weather posed some challenges this week, but with a little persistence and good luck, we were able to conduct this flyover on the 25th of April at an altitude of 10,500 feet to capture all the fast-moving action at Starbase, Texas. My name's Jeff A, and I'll be your guide today, so let's kick back and take in the exciting sights of Starbase, Texas. We'll start over at Massey's test facility. As always, here's a labelled map from Proky. At the time of writing, Ship 36 was rolled along Highway 4 to Massey's on April 26th. Soon after, its cryo testing began. Back in the air, we begin at the boosted cryo stand, where teams have begun dismantling the old quick disconnect frame's plumbing. Next, the crew will run plumbing into the new quick disconnect frame to support the next iteration of Starship's super heavy boosters. The new frames are positioned further around to the left. This new plumbing will give us more clues to the new QD system for boosters. Moving to the new booster cryo stand, we can see that work on the permanent walkway is progressing nicely, with the floor sections being installed. Additionally, mounting for the other 20 arms similar to the ones in the structural test stand have been installed, as well as mounting for inner thrust rams. The flame trench platform is now deployed, ready for Ship 35 to conduct its pre-flight static fire test. Finally, at the top left of the site, an additional tank sits after being delivered on the 17th. Before we move to Sanchez, let's take a look at the progress at Rio West. We'll begin at the shopping centre, where the foundations are nearing completion, with just the elevator shaft and surrounding area left to be finished. At the apartment buildings, it looks like some staircases are being constructed on the exterior. Moving to the housing in the middle, garage and foundation preparation is coming along nicely, with the top row making its way towards the right slowly. Along the bottom row of the housing development, nearly all the second levels have been poured, and framing continues for the second level of the houses on the left side of that row. At the top, nearly all first levels of the houses are complete, with most waiting their second levels. Let's move to Sanchez, shall we? Starting at the launch mount for Pad B, we can see lots of progress, starting with the scaffolding being removed from the centre ahead of installation of the hold-down arms. At the time of this flyover, only 4 had been delivered. We can see them in this photo, including the one already installed. Also, the 20 actuators for hold-down extensions and retraction have been delivered. Some have already been installed, as they cannot fit inside the structure once the hold-down arms are fitted. We can clearly see new markings on the top of the pancake where the boosted QDs will be located. This confirms the orientation of the launch mount at the launch site. The last noticeable thing is that the new water manifold has been delivered. The next day, it would be lifted into place, as you can see in this ground photo from Sean Giesler. Be sure to give him a follow over on X. At the ship quick disconnect arm area, there has been minimal noticeable work lately. We can see some new platforms and railings where workers will access the ship quick disconnect arm from the tower, similar to what we see on Launch Pad 1. Moving over to the rocket garden, concrete has been poured at the access road from the build site. Remember that this will likely be the new main access road to the build site, as Gigabay will block the current B2 entrance. Further evidence of this is the widening of the road that we can see at the Highway 4 end and against the parking garage. Finally, all the actuators have been removed from the booster cryo stand. Most likely it has been scrapped, as a new cryo stand is being built at Massey's, as previously mentioned. Just before moving to the build site, we'd like to thank all of our YouTube and Patreon members. Remember, all of the Patreon members get to participate in our show and tell sessions on the same day as each flight. Here you can join in the discussion and ask your own questions. YouTube members also get to watch and listen in with a live chat function. Now moving on to the build site, where demolition work continues to move forward in preparation for the Gigabay. Looking at the high bay, the yellow crane has been hard at work dismantling the siding. We can see a pile of scrap metal in the corner where they've been letting certain materials fall to the ground rather than lowering it down. The area to the east of the bay formerly occupied by the Stargate building is now completely cleared. There are new holes in the Star Factory roof where crews will cut the roof beams in the wedge portion. On the high bay side of this section of the factory, we can see the removal of sections of cladding and glass to access more of the structure. In this ground shot from Sean Giesler, we can see this work continued into the week in preparation to remove the entire wedge section. Moving over to Mega Bay 2, there was a flurry of activity here just after this flyover. First, the nose cone of Ship 38 exited the factory before moving back inside for a couple of more days. Then, as mentioned at the start of the video, Ship 36 left Mega Bay 2 for Massey's on April 26th. After only 2 days there for cryo testing, it rolled back to the build site on the 28th. Just hours prior, Ship 38's nose cone once again rolled out of the Star Factory and made its way to Mega Bay 2 to begin stacking. As Ship 36 rolled into the ring yard, Ship 35 made an appearance after being lifted onto the static fire stand with a new lifting rig consisting of a load spreader and slings attached to the landing points, rather than the 4-point lifter. It then made its way to Massey's in the early hours of the 29th of April. Lab Padre's Rover 1 cam caught all this shuffling of ships. Thanks once again to Vix for compiling these videos. Moving on to Mega Bay 1, home of boosters 14, 15 and 16, Test Tank 17 was moved out of the bay on the 21st of April to the Star Factory. This test article was confirmed by a SpaceX employee to be a test article for the version 3 booster soon to debut. From the outside, we can see access ports that line up with the 5 angled and 1 horizontal test points attached to the landing tank test hardware inside the LOX tank. Taking a look at Boca Chica Village, the apartment building under construction on Meme Street is making good progress. More of the piles are being exposed and formwork stood up in preparation for the foundations. One of them has finally been poured in the corner. It appears that the pile installation is finished with no rebar cages visible on the ground, and both of the CFA rigs being disassembled. The townhouses over on Asperson Street are also making good progress. And with that, let's head over to the launch site. The launch site continues to change every week as the break in launches allows crews an uninterrupted schedule. Let's take a moment to look at the gantry. Nothing notable this week, but as progress turns to the internal systems, we wait for those systems to be finished for cladding to enclose it all from sight. Looking to the trench, the 4 legs that support the launch mount have been installed. The adjacent wall panels that make up the 5th row of centre panels were also quickly installed. Seen here, a large beam has been placed between 2 of the legs, likely to space the legs to the proper location for welding. The last wall segment on the gantry side ramp slope has been abandoned while the focus appears to be on the centre. Additional panels are expected to rise to the top of the legs as angled panels have been delivered that match the flared shape of the leg tops. Looking at the flame diverter, we can see that the ridge cap has been lifted into place. There is a gap on each end that will need to be covered to protect the pipes along the curved wings of the diverter. Taking a brief look back to Sanchez, this shield is believed to be one of the 2 covers for this area. Returning to the launch site, another look at the flame diverter shows the 4 single pipes installed where rigging was attached to install the diverter halves. At the lower end of the pipes, they are being cut to align them all to the same length. To the east end of the flame trench, tower cladding panels are staged. These may be the first to be installed on Tower 2. At the western property line, a new tent has been erected on the newly poured pad. Pallet racking has been seen delivered, indicating this will be an inventory tent for materials moving forward. To the west of the Deluge tank farm, the gas switchgear pipework continues. Propellant lines in the bunker can also be seen connecting toward the launch mount trench. Turning to the Deluge tank farm, the 5 manifolds for the smaller tanks are complete. Installation for the 4 larger tanks has started, with these manifolds being too large for a single assembly and being made from multiple pieces. Looking to the Deluge pipe trench, an unexpected development is seen with the upper excavation not just for the 1 pipeline discussed last week, but 2 larger pipes and also 5 smaller ones. Near the flame trench, the 2 lower pipes have their first extensions installed. One of the forks from the Y pipe is also connected to the pass-through pipe in the steel wall. At the pump farm, the 5 boosted pump systems are further assembled with pump 2 removed. The final piece of the kettle boiler exhaust has been installed, completing the exhaust chimney. This week, the large methane subcooler has received new pipework as well, while the 4 kettle boilers remain unchanged from the previous flyover. With all the methane side frames assembled, the skids have started to arrive. 3 already in place, with many more arriving rapidly in the days to follow. Only the remaining 2 pump stands are incomplete, with parts for one of them on site. At the back of the area, connection of the buried gas supply lines has started on the pipe racks. Nearby, another segment of the protection wall is complete, with only 2 of these short segments remaining that will turn the corner protecting the gas lines from pad 2. In front of the methane tanks, 2 pipe assemblies continue to grow in length. Soon we should see these lifted on the newly installed rack extensions. The concrete pad in this area was also poured. Embeds can be seen for a single vertical tank and 3 square items, likely additional vaporizers. At the east end of the tank farm, additional hardware has been installed in the large tanks. 2 pipes are connected to what are believed to be the vents. Near the helium tanks parked at the highway are the 8 sumps for the methane pumps, as well as several valve actuators. Once again, the roundabout is progressing. The main travel lane for the north half is formed with rebar installed. This lane would be poured on April 27th. The SpaceX LR11000 can now be seen with its main boom raised and ready for use. On April 27th, the 2 heavy lift cranes swapped positions so that the Buckner-owned crane could be laid down on the 28th, ahead of having its boom shortened to match. As mentioned in the past, it's expected that the 2 LR11000s will be used in tandem to lift the launch mount atop the 4 legs, possibly in the very near future. Pad 1 has been quiet for yet another week. The area has very little equipment staged, suggesting it's ready for Flight 9 once the vehicles pass their tests. One of the only items seen was related to the newly installed pipe that runs up the side of Tower 1. Based on the path toward the Deluge tank farm, which also has the CO2 tanks used for filling the booster fire suppression system, it was believed that the ship might also get a similar installation. This would be disproven this week when Lab Padre's Rover 2 camera would catch the test of what turns out to be a new fire suppression system on the tower itself. Thanks to Vix for putting together this clip from the intel from our very own Patreon member Event Dudes. Well, that's it for episode 81 of Starbase Flyover Update. Thank you for choosing to fly with RGV aerial photography, and we hope you all enjoyed the flight. If you liked what you saw today, please subscribe for more episodes and content so you don't miss out on the new videos each week. I'm Jeff A, and we hope to see you again from 10,500 feet.